pleased to be here, and thanks for a chance to, I suppose, if any of you had been to a previous WRFC, you would have seen me talk about the Fishing BC app. It does feel as though it's well worth providing an update, partially because it is an evolving project, and the experiences that we've had in bringing this forward, I reflect on the presentation we just heard from Nico, and working towards an environment where we can use the data collected by the app and ensure that the recreational angling public is actually using the app. And so we might have kind of approached this in a slightly different way than saying, okay, look, we're just going to work at collecting catch data. There are gaps that exist in the recreational fishery in British Columbia, just as in many other fisheries that we are hearing about. But there are good catch monitoring programs in place. And the thought here for the Fishing BC app was that we could complement that and in fact transition from paper-based creel survey to a digital environment where the recreational sector could be involved and actively participate in catch data. So the project launched in 2017, actually after inspiration from the 2014 WRFC, observing another app at the time that was created. And I've noted that the license integration is only as recently as 2024, and that's a really key component, which I'll get into a little bit later. It's a collaboration with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, which is a federal body that manages tidal water fisheries, and the Sport Fishing Institute, which I'm a part, and the Pacific Salmon Foundation, which is basically an enhancement and conservation group that's dedicated to salmon, wouldn't you know. And so that's serving 350,000 license holders annually, supporting a $1.3 billion a year industry and 9,100 direct jobs. And since 2017, we've generated a lot of app users. I'll explain why there's the distinction between the licenses. Well, I suppose that's noted because of the integration in 2024, but we have 100,000 app users that seem to be using it relatively frequently, leave it on the phone, and carry on with that. So, well, this is interesting. I didn't know I did that. Okay, I'm just going to put them all up there. So the idea here, the motivation is that the tidal water regulations are pretty complex and not getting any better. The government of Canada had an edict that they would not print materials in any kind of volume, and regulations had typically been printed in books, and people would get one at the beginning of the year. It was exciting to see what the cover would be, but anyway, those days are gone, and on top of that, regulations are changing a fair bit more quickly. So there was good call and reason to sort of work towards an app, and for that reason, as I say, anglers need real-time information to be able to know that they're fishing properly, legally, and are compliant. And we've had paper licenses forever. In 2010, the federal government moved to a digital license, but provided no means or way to hold the license digitally, which seems bizarre, but that's the way it was. And so mandatory catch that's required to be put on licenses was written in paper. And surveys would capture that information, but largely that would just sort of disappear into the ether. And people, a proportion of the population would say, oh, this is a great opportunity. I can have my license, and if I fill up my allowable catch, I can just sort of print a new one and get away with that. And so there was a real interest to work towards a digital environment. And as we all know, we've discussed here, the opportunities for digital catch data to be collected in a timely manner, and quality and quantity are pretty significant. So there was a lot of good call and reason to work towards this. So the functions that the app currently has, and are sort of important for management as well. Up-to-date tidal regulations and closures, automated real-time updates and fishery notices through an API, use of the phone's GPS to help with location awareness for people. They can look for their area by name, or they can look at a map and say, I'm here, and the phone will provide the regulations accordingly. And again, this business of having your license on the app and mandatory catch reporting. So this is all intended to really help incentivize use and provide utility for both anglers and the Department of Fisheries. And so this business about license integration was quite complicated because it's, in effect, it's a third-party app, and we're outside of government, working with government, and it's got to be all filtered through security, privacy, and all of that. And so it took 7 years to work that, and we got it finally sorted out in 2024. So that's now a thing, and you have your fishing license on the app itself, and that's a legal way to hold your license. You can record your catch. As I said previously, you'd record it in paper, and you'd record the area and the length, or the very few details that were required on paper. You now do that. You can also include a photo, which is right now doesn't go anywhere, but there's no reason that data is collected, and a finer resolution of data is collected. It's down to a sub area. Notes about what kind of fish it is, whether it's wild or marked, a hatchery fish as example, and then length and that sort of thing. And so that is all collected real time and sent to the NRLS, which is the National Licensing System. So that's a super large improvement for data collection. And so, as well as wanting to have the license integration and the catch log, which is a really key objective for the app and for Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the thought was that we needed to incentivize folks to use the app and to want to call on it for any fishing related questions or interest and that sort of thing. And so we've got a number of features that are useful for the department, but really they're intended for anglers. Including release best practices that have been recently sort of revised, that I'll get a chance to talk about in a couple of days' time. Salmon Heads for Science is basically a program that's been around for a long time in BC that collects the heads of salmon, and they are either tagged or not, and there's information collected, and so this is information about how to participate in that. UBC questionnaire, we've had a couple of different questionnaires on Chinook survival, and this one's on pinnipeds, seals, and sea lions. And then we have information about salmon, curious and interesting facts about salmon from the Pacific Salmon Foundation. So these are all, like I say, intended, and weather and tide information. So this is not all kind of copy and pasted. This is real-time, live information that, of course, you do need connectivity, and our coast is large. So some of these features don't function if you haven't taken a moment to update before you've left the dock or Wi-Fi. However, the license integration works whether you're connected to the internet or not. So that function is constant whether you're connected or not. Wow, like I said, I didn't know I did that. And so again, another really important part of this, and actually what got the ball rolling and what allowed us to work with DFO, and I suppose sort of ground truth and get the angling public involved, is to provide regulations and maps. As I say, it's a pretty big coast. It's fairly complex. The regulations change sometimes by the week. There's many different species, and so it's all here. This is a one-stop shop. Again, there's a lot of connectivity, but the advice is, look, just before you leave the dock, if you know what you want, you can download it all, and it will stay with the phone on your fishing outing. So that's been a really important, and I think for the most part, that's why people were using the app. And this is not last, but this is what actually inspired the app to begin with. There was a presentation given from a Florida group, the International Game Fish Association, about a species ID, very early days, I'd say. And we thought we would try to do the same thing with regards to salmon and rockfish species. And that's proving to be a bit of a challenge. It requires a lot of photos, and we're gaining them slowly. But this is a nice feature that we hope will build over time and allow people that are just not familiar to be able to take a picture of their fish and understand what it is. Whoops. How do you go back? There. Yeah. So the other aspect of this, and I'll be wrapping up very quickly, is this is a nice advancement for enforcement. One, they can check on catch records. This notion of paper licenses being sort of changed, or having a version in the car and in the boat and on your person and everything, has been a bit of a thorn in the side of enforcement. And their ability to sort of track catch is really heightened, and it's also a good talking point for enforcement. So it's valued by the department as well. Weird. So we continue to keep on keeping on, and we do have, it's been sort of a softly promoted thing, partially because the license integration took a long time to complete, and so there was a bit of a resistance to saying, hey, use this in this way, partially because they couldn't, even though they were tempted to. Now they can, but the government support and communication on it has been a little bit limited, so that's a struggle. We want to get people out of their old habits and using the app because of all of the opportunities that are presented. And it's not a simple thing to just integrate new data sources into existing surveys. That's a work in progress. I suppose we've had time, so that's good. That's coming along. And yeah, the successes that we've had, it's been very well received. It seems to be growing every year. People do seem to retain it on their devices once they have downloaded it, because they can take photos and it keeps a journal and their licenses and all the rest of it. And it has improved compliance. We've heard that from enforcement staff. And so we're kind of looking forward to a future where we can absolutely integrate the data that's collected. We have some examples already where we've got data sets of 15,000 halibut and that sort of thing, which has informed some of the choices that we are involved in being able to make for a fishery from year to year. But more to come. Maybe I'll be back in 3 years' time to tell you that it now has 350,000 users and is the main source of data for the recreational fishery in British Columbia. That'd be great. I kind of doubt it, but that'd be nice. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.